Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is a photograph of President Emmerson Mnangagwa inspecting villas that are being built in Mount Hobden to accommodate the presidential delegates who are coming in August for SADC meeting there. And at the end of that meeting, President Mnangagwa will take over as chairman of SADC for a year. And so they're building these 18 villas, especially for the delegates. The other day, they were inspecting, he was inspecting the refurbished Mikkels Hotel, apparently for the same purpose as well. I suppose some of the other delegates will be staying in the Mikkels, and then some of the delegates will be staying in the villas. And no expense have been spared, of course. And yet, ordinary facilities for the ordinary Zimbabweans are being allowed to become derelict and absolutely useless. It's unbelievable. The level of it is just, unbelievable. Ben, what do you think?
Yeah. Good day to you all. I think we've spoken about priorities. Where does one's priority lie? Is it with the people? Is it for show off? Or is it for me, selfish gain? And I mean, you sent me this article about Parliamentary, and as I was reading, one thing that caught my attention was that Parliamentary needs money for repairs of machines, dialysis machines, and other renal machines. And the money that is needed for the repairs is 20,000 and 80,000 respectively. And then, you just fail to understand. Are we then saying government cannot give them 20,000 just to repair these machines and save lives? Yet they are willing to spend over, I think they must be gone over 20 million because they had to purchase, the Mikkels Hotel as well. And now they're building villas. They cannot spare such little money just to help their own people. Actually, I think it's just sad. I think this is the most wicked government you can ever have or ever think to have. I just don't get the sense. People are dying. People are sleeping on floors in Parreñato. And this is supposed to be, the central hospital, the biggest hospital in Zimbabwe. And it's fallen apart. It stinks in there. I won't go to the building. It's just terrible, terrible right through. It's so gloomy. Entering in there, it just, it spells a disaster. Oh, man. It's sad just to speak about it.
Yeah, that is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. Parreñato Hospital is one of the 4 referral hospitals in Zimbabwe. That means all the other hospitals around the country, if they've got a really difficult case, a very seriously sick patient, they will refer them to the referral hospital. And Parliamentary is one of those. And when you hear that they do not have equipment, basic equipment in the referral hospital, what more of the provincial hospitals? What more of the district hospitals? That's when you realize the seriousness of our situation. This is a tragic reality. The villas we're showing you there that Mnangagwa was inspecting is in Mount Hopton. That's where they've just completed last year this $400 million new parliament. $400 million. And the other day they were showing they're building a highway from Harare city center to Mount Hopton. 4 lanes going up, 4 lanes coming down. And no expenses being spared. And now they're building these 18 villas. And they've just recommissioned this former Mikos Hotel, and so forth. So you can see the amount of money that is being spent for the few ruling elite. No expenses are being spared. Some of them, they live in mansions. And yet, at the bottom end of it, for the ordinary people, even the hospitals that we inherited at independence are falling apart. The regime is failing to maintain them. They're building private hospitals, which the ordinary person cannot afford. But that is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. We are going in parallel. One side, the few filthy rich are getting incredibly rich and powerful. And on the other, the masses, the ordinary people, the poor, they are getting filthy poor. This is unsustainable. I think that's one thing that this regime doesn't seem to appreciate. This is not sustainable, Benjamin.
I agree with you. I mean, I think in the end, one thing will give. I mean, I'm trying to look at the logic behind spending over, I guess probably we could say in the region of 50 million just to buy the hotel and fix the villas, build up new villas for guests, and pave the road that they are going to use, that kind of thing. And then you wonder, for how long are these guys actually coming for? That you would put so much effort, and then after, what are you going to do with it? For me, it doesn't make any sense. Yet, your own people are struggling. Your own people, are dying. I mean, look at this situation where a woman is pregnant, and in what we call, a preparation, checklist, she's told she must bring her own surgical blade, her own gloves, and a candle. Surely a candle says that if electricity is not there, of which this is the hospital, electricity is supposed to be there. If it's not there, at least have a generator, have solar panels, and that's at least. How are you going to operate a hospital on candlelight? What happens if you're in a theater? I just do not understand what these guys are all about. And I know that they are wicked, but the level of their wickedness, I think now has just gone above and beyond. It's I cannot comprehend it anymore to say, you're busy doing all these things. Yes, I know you got visitors. Usually, in our African society, we say when visitors come, we kill even that precious chicken. I understand, but you cannot kill that chicken. Yet, for the past 3 days, your kids have been hungry. For me, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And even the visitors, I think the visitors that are coming, they should be told this is what these guys are on about. And that they are deprived, them being there has just deprived us of a lot of things. It's so sad. It's sickening.
While one can say these villas are being built, this is just part of the norm. You were asking there earlier on what will happen to those 18 villas once the guests have left. They will be allocated to the ruling elite. And yes, on paper, they will be told they've got to pay for them, but in reality, they'll get them for nothing. Just the normal thing in Zimbabwe. I mean, we know, for instance, that before the last year's elections, judges were given 400,000 US dollars housing loan, which we all know they never had to repay. So these villas will be given away again to the ruling elite. This is just another excuse to for the regime to spend lavishly. This has been going on for the last 44 years for crying out loud. So that is the reality. The reality is, even, I mean, we were talking of Parinya right there. It's not the last few months that things have deteriorated in Parinya Hospital or any of the other hospitals up and down the country. We are talking of decades of neglect. Some of the rural hospitals are in such a sorry state that the buildings themselves, some of them, are collapsing because of neglect. There are no nurses, and most of the staff there, if as you can see in the headlines, there, many nurses and doctors have retired en masse because the living conditions, the working conditions are so deplorable. It is just meaningless. The few free user policy there is only for a select people that the regime may say they don't pay for hospital treatment. War veterans, for instance. And even those war veterans must be scratching their head and saying, is it worth it? Because if you have come all the way from wherever, outside Harare or within Harare, and you think you are entitled to free treatment, and then you find there are no nurses, none of the medical equipment is working. Was it worth your while? Even if you're told you don't have to pay for it, you'd rather pay for it and get a service. And there you are. You're supposed to get it for free, and it's not even there. The whole thing is tragic. And I think this is one of the things that is really the people have failed to realize here. The other thing is that this present political economic situation is not sustainable. You can't have a few living in lavish luxury while millions of your fellow countrymen are living in abject poverty. Up to 50% of Zimbabwe's population today, they are living in abject poverty. And with the health system having collapsed, one can see this is totally unsustainable. The education system has also equally collapsed because of neglect. So for the millions of ordinary Zimbabweans, they have no education, they have no health, they have no work. How can you expect the country to go on like that? This is unsustainable. The gulf between the rich, the filthy rich, and the masses has grown into a chasm, and he cannot bridge it. The whole thing is going to crash down like a house of cards. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe.
I agree with you. It's just a matter of time, and I don't believe in this free user policy being the main reason for the downfall of Parriñato and other hospitals. Free only covers as much as bedding when it comes to hospitals now. The food is horrible. It's not even palatable. Usually you bring your own relative food from home if they're to eat, because the food is probably sadza with uh, vegetables with peanut butter, or with some funny chicken, the cheap stuff. I've seen it. This is what they are being given. So I personally think it's just free boarding in there. Medicines, there is no medicines in their pharmacies whatsoever. They just write you up a prescription. You go and you buy in town or any other pharmacy except the one in the hospital. Then you bring your own drugs. So I think that is a poor excuse. Let's get that they clarified. And if it comes to retiring, I think it's not retiring as such. A lot of even nurses, doctors, and and the staff there are willing to downgrade themselves and go and do nurse AD in the UK and other European countries, because they get more money by doing those jobs than what they are getting paid at home. That is the main reason why they are so poorly equipped in terms of staff. Human capital is going for greener pastures, not retiring. How can you retire in Zimbabwe? What do you retire on? If you ask a lot of people in Zimbabwe that are employed by government to say, are you retiring? Retiring, I got a couple of people that I know that actually retired, and they've been in the service for going on 20, 30 years. The money that they got for their pension is less than $1,000. Then tell me what retiring is there when you don't have money. You'd rather continue working and get that peanuts that you have. So I that is where I do not agree. I with the whole article to say these are the reasons. I think the main reasons, or the main reason, actually, there's one, is corruption. Right? For me, corruption covers everything. Mismanagement, everything is all encompassed in one: corruption. Unless we address that, and like you said, the gap between the rich, the filthy rich, and the poor is getting bigger and bigger by the day. Eventually, all this here is going to explode. it's just a matter of time.
This is when you see this and then you contrast with this video clip of ZANU-PF supporters clamoring that they wanted Mnangagwa to continue to rule. That's when you realize this is a country that is in serious trouble. Of course, the reality is that those people, they are singing that Mnangagwa should stay in power, and they are from Masvingo. Like I said, this is Parliamentary Hospital in Harare, the capital city. It is one of the referral hospitals, and therefore then expected to be bigger than hospitals in Masvingo. In Masvingo town itself, it would be considered to be the provincial hospital. So if the situation is in a sorry state in a referral hospital, one can be certain that in the provincial hospital it's even worse. And when you go outside the provincial hospital, things get even worse and worse. So why are these people then clamoring that Mnangagwa should continue to rule? That's when you realize Zimbabwe has become such a distorted nation to the point of becoming totally meaningless. These people clearly are not doing this out of their free will, which is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. Last year's elections were not free, fair, and credible. It was well documented that many people were coerced to attend ZANU-PF rallies, coerced to go and vote. Mnangagwa himself is on record boasting that when it comes to voting, the party is arranged so that they will have the party chairperson or some such leader in the front. The villagers will follow, and then behind them, the village head. So they are being headed like cattle to the polling stations. And the party will know how you voted, you boasted. No wonder SADC in the AU condemned those elections as flawed and illegal. What is the way forward here? I've said here that this is unsustainable. The bridge, the gap between the filthy rich few and the filthy poor masses is growing into a chasm. It cannot be bridged. If it's going to be bridged at all, we need to bridge it now. The agents of the matter cannot be overemphasized. The only way forward at the present moment is that we should do something to stop this case of rigged elections and bad governance. That should be our number one priority as a nation. At the present moment, ZANU-PF is not going to implement any reforms. The party already has got a supermajority in parliament thanks to CCC infighting that has allowed ZANU-PF to build up its parliamentary majority to a supermajority. CCC itself is all but imploded. And as far as one can see, Chamisa is planning to relaunch his party with the view of participating in 2028 without even a single reform implemented. And he will no doubt be telling people that he has come up with a new strategy of winning rigged elections. So in terms of the ruling party itself and the opposition, the elections are going ahead without any reforms. But the people themselves can stop it. There was no need for the ordinary Zimbabweans to participate in last year's elections, given that they could see the process is flawed. By participating, they gave the process legitimacy. That point cannot be overemphasized. SADC itself, while they condemned the process, they could not deny ZANU-PF legitimacy, given that over 2 million Zimbabweans alone had voted for Chamisa alone. And the opposition itself, of course, had participated. And those who had won the few Graviton seats took them up and claimed that they had won these seats because these are liberated zones. In other words, the elections in those areas were free, fair, and credible, which undermined, of course, SADC and the AU's report. But if the people themselves had not participated, I believe SADC would have had the guts to say this is not acceptable. So the way out is for the people to realize here and now, that they must not participate in a flawed electoral process to give ZANU-PF on the one hand legitimacy, and on the other give the opposition the few Graviton seats, because those are all they care about the opposition. The opposition and ZANU-PF have been working in cahoots. There cannot be any denying it. The people themselves have been slow to realize that the opposition have been running with the povo hair while hunting with the ZANU-PF hounds. It's high time the people open their eyes. And it's high time that many Zimbabweans out there start educating, particularly those opposition supporters, the Chamisa Chete Chete brigade. No nation can afford to have such myopic, narrow-minded electorate. Chamisa Chete Chete on what basis? Chamisa Chete Chete has failed to explain why he told the people that he was going to win 2023, failed to do so. Why he lied that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes when it was clear that he had not done so. To go into another election, to endorse the process, to give ZANU-PF legitimacy is the most idiotic thing anyone can do. Zimbabwe cannot afford it. Thank you very much, Benjamin. I don't know whether you want to give your closing remarks then.
In closing, I think you've already done justice. I would just add to say, for democracy or for us to find our way or to find our feet, it has to start with you and me. Forget about political parties, because every political party has got its own agenda and its own mission and vision. Now they see themselves once they get into power. It is you and I that have to live through whatever situation that would have come out, or out of all this mess. So since we are the ones that have to live through it, I think we need to start thinking for ourselves. What are we being sold? What is it? What is there in it for all of us? Not to think for self, but for all of us. Think of your rural folk. Think of your children. Think of everybody around you, your neighbors, your immediate and your extended family, right, and your friends. Let's stop being selfish. I think if we remove self from this equation and start thinking as a community, and to think outside the box, and not just believe whatever story that we are told just because it sounds good and we are desperate to hear that. I think this is where the biggest problem is. For a politician, especially in Africa, it's very easy to win the hearts of people. Just tell them what they want to hear, especially when it comes to their stomachs. I think that is our biggest downfall. We have been inside poverty for a very long time. We are eager to get out of it, even if somebody comes and tell us absolutely nonsense, we will believe it because that is the only hope. I don't believe that is the only hope. There is hope out there, especially for Zimbabwe. But it starts with us. The leaders that we choose or that we view, our limitations, the way we think. If we have a limited view or a little limited, thinking capacity, we will get very little in terms of perspective or even, the right person. We need to think big and think outside the box. That's how it works. If we cannot do that, then we will be stuck here going around and around in circles. And ZANU-PF will be messing around with us each and every single time. So it all begins with you and me. That's what I want to say in close.
Thank you very much, Benjamin, and thank you very much for the few listeners who were able to join us tonight. And I hope we'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.